coming, Mary Linda. Karin Agness, to my right, was the founder and president of the Network of Enlightened Women, the nation's premier organization for conservative university women. She's a graduate of the University of Virginia for both her undergrad and law degrees, and I can tell you it's not an easy law school to get into. She practiced law in D.C. and is a senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. She's been named as one of the Maverick PAC's 40 under 40, and last year she was also one of the Forbes 30 under 30, as well as Red Alert Politics 30 under 30. So thank you, Karin, for being here, for sure. All right, Karin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be here. My involvement with women in politics really stems from an internship I had in Washington, D.C. for one of my home state senators, Senator Lugar from Indiana. And that was my first time really being around a lot of conservative women who were smart and ambitious and wanted to have families and wanted to have careers, and were really trying to figure all that out. And the feminist voices just weren't really reaching a lot of them and weren't reaching me as a young woman. And so when I went back to the University of Virginia for my third year of undergrad, I sought out an environment like what I had found in DC. Smart, ambitious women who wanted to talk about the issues of the day and didn't want to just throw out one-liners. Were really interested in how, a 500-page bill was going to affect them and their family and their lives. And I went to some of our women's organizations at UVA, and as you can imagine, they weren't necessarily open to more conservative women. And actually, on my way home from class one day, I walked by a building called the Women's Center. Now, the Women's Center, I thought at the time, okay, this could be it. This would be a great outlet to talk about these issues. And so I called and scheduled a meeting with a faculty member there, and she was excited to have a bright-eyed student who wanted to learn more. But all the programs were really coming from a radical feminist perspective and more on the left. But with this faculty member there, I figured this was my shot to ask if they might be interested in working together. So I asked a University of Virginia faculty member at the Women's Center if they would be interested in co-sponsoring an organization for conservative young women. Her response, she looked at me like I was crazy, chuckled, and said, "Not here." And so that's when I decided to start an alternative. So started the Network of Enlightened Women, or NEW, as an organization for conservative women on college campuses. And anyone who says that conservative principles can't reach young women should pay attention to organizations like NEW, because we've now spread to over 20 college campuses nationally. We have a big national conference each summer in Washington, D.C., and are really growing. So I think that these principles can really resonate with young women. So I'm excited to be here and to continue the work to try to reach young women with conservative ideas.
Thank you. Karin, the Democrats they love this war on women theme. And while Mitt Romney won married women, as you know, there was a struggle with single women. At the same time, you got Democrats like Spitzer, Weiner, Filner, all over the news.
It's quite a group, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But okay, keeping all that in mind, what are some of the things that you think we can do better to reach young women? And obviously there are many opportunities, but what would your advice be in getting better at that and maybe reaching more people, young women, for example, across the board?
Yeah, I was excited to see in the Growth and Opportunity Report, a big section on reaching women and recognizing that, women are not just some unified voting bloc that's going to vote liberal every time, because it is more complicated than that. As to reaching young women, we saw in the last election, the Democrats were really successful at putting out a number of images and celebrity ads really targeted at young women. And so I think one of the things that we need to be doing is recognizing the different segments of women and really targeting them. Now, I have to admit, as a young woman myself, I found some of the things the left was putting out is frankly insulting. I mean, remember The Life of Julia? Mm-hmm. The image of a woman showing her life from age 3 to 67 under Obama, and it was basically every major decision or step, there was something she had to do with the federal government. I mean, I found that insulting, and I think we need to put out an alternative to that, and that it will really speak to women. So I think the keys are really targeting these different segments and recognizing that it's a different block, and then meeting women where they are. So for young women, a lot of what we're doing in New is we use the technology that the college women are using, and we speak to them through their professors and their other students and their peers, and really try to meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm. On a similar front, Mary Linda, Karin, there's folks out here that want to tackle this issue of bias at universities. So what advice would you give folks out here as to what they can do to tackle this issue at our universities and colleges across the country?
Well, I see at least one head of an organization who does some of that out in the crowd, so it's great to see. So tackling the universities, it is a big challenge, and one of the things we have to do is, first of all, acknowledge that there are problems there, and then secondly, try to create alternative environments there. So one of the things we've done with New is we've created this alternative home for conservative women, and we get them educated on issues through the book clubs, and then they're emboldened to speak up in their classes and to get engaged in their classes. So I think it's important to really provide and foster those alternatives. So those of you who run, for example, local Republican organizations and clubs, reach out to the college Republicans at your universities and invite them to your meetings and get engaged with them and see what you can do on that front. I think that's important. And then I'm happy to say, being from Indiana, we now have our former governor, Mitch Daniels, who's the head of Purdue University. And I'm really excited. That helps. So I'm excited to see what he'll do at Purdue and see if he can really turn that into a market leader for ideas and for really a market leader for changing some things at universities across the country.
Speaking of Indiana, is Tim Berry here, the new chairman of Indiana? So to Scott, Mary Linda, TW, Karin, thank you for doing this. These are your rising stars for the Republican National Committee. Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, thank you. Very kind of you. Thank you.